7:01, I will call a common council meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Iverson.
Here.
Schatzinger.
Here.
Reamer.
Here.
Gallup.
Here. Here.
Platsky. Sorensen.
Here.
Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I'd first of all just like to extend my thanks to the administrative staff of this city who've been doing such an amazing job during this period of early voting. Please extend that to them on my behalf. Thank you. Let's pray. Gracious and holy God, we give you thanks this evening for this opportunity to be together, to be about the work of the city of Ripon and the good of its citizens. We ask that your presence and spirit be with all who are here tonight to speak and be heard, and that the decisions that are made tonight be guided by your wisdom and your grace and your compassion. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
I will second.
Motion by Steve, second by Dave. Any discussion on the agenda? None. All those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. It's now time for public comment. This is the opportunity for citizens to come before the council with comments and concerns on any current city issue, knowing no action may be taken tonight. I ask that you keep it civil and respectful and within 5 minutes. However, discussion of personnel or individual members of the common council shall not be permitted. I expect you to be respectful, and in return, I expect the council to treat the citizens with the same respect. Before you begin, please state your name and address for the record. First, we have Joshua Sherman.
Hello, my name is Joshua Sherman. I live at 428 Spalding Avenue. I've lived in Ripon for about 15 years and 7 years at my current location. Appreciate the work and time that the City Council, the Mayor, and the staff have put into running our city. I also want to thank the council members and the Mayor for allowing me to speak and express my opinions on the matter. I'm here to petition you to vote no on the proposed wheel tax. I live by a motto, one of many, and that is, if you're going to complain about something, you must have a solution for it. Without a solution, there is no credit to your complaint, so I have prepared my reason for why the wheel tax should not be approved, along with 2 suggested alternatives. Each time I receive my paycheck, it is taxed. FICA, Social Security, state, etc. With that taxed money, I bought my used car that has been taxed 2 times already, and I had to pay taxes a 3rd time on that used vehicle. Then I registered my car with the state for permission to drive it on the streets that my property taxes paid for every year. Then I am required by the state of Wisconsin to have insurance. That insurance is taxed at 5%. When I put gas in my car, I am taxed for each gallon of gas. Any repairs that I make on my car for maintenance is taxed, and parts and labor as well. Now I am asked to impose, or I am asked to pay a 7th tax on my car because I live in the city of Ripon. This is my complaint and the reason why you should not impose a wheel tax on the residents of Ripon, which leads me to my solutions. 2 solutions I have come up with and recommend for you. Number 1, I believe this is a better solution than the wheel tax, but not the correct solution. That would be a 1 cent, 2 cent, or 3 cent gas tax on all pumps inside of Ripon. A wheel tax places the burden only on the residents to maintain the roads that are used by thousands of non-residents driving through each day. The gas tax would spread the burden over anyone who might use our roads, not just the ones who live here. I drive a small Toyota Matrix. I should not have to pay for all the damage that is done by a 50 or 60,000 pound truck coming through, nor the wear and tear of the thousands of out-of-state vacationers coming through our town. Number two, this is my preferred solution. That is fiscal responsibility. According to the 2024 Parks and Recreation budget, you have allotted a salary and additional expenses. According to the 2024 budget, full-time salaries are $65,922. Health and life insurance for those full-time salaries, $7,117. Social Security, $7,004. And retirement, $6,370. And professional services, $5,000. These 6 items come to $116,988. The total Parks and Recreation budget, according to the 2024 budget, is $176,031. I don't know if that includes the vehicle that was provided for the Parks and Recreation. I couldn't find on the website. I know there were fleet vehicles purchased. Several of them were $30,000 leased, I believe, but I couldn't find specific. 6,031, I believe, is without the vehicle. In addition to that budget, as of 2024, there is now a $125 rental fee for Barlow and Murray Park baseball diamonds that were not there years prior. It has been closed to the public during the winter months. The proposed wheel tax was estimated to generate about $195,000, not counting the vehicle. This is a difference of only 18. Infrastructure like roads, bridges, gas, sewer, water, electric are the backbones of a community and are a necessity.
That's time. That's your time.
Okay. Could I just leave my closing statement?
Finish your sentence.
Okay. Because of the necessity for roads, it is therefore my recommendation the proposed wheel tax, but instead consider the importance of our roads and how much the residents of Ripon already pay in tax and fees. Cutting a budget is what every person knows is the way to make ends meet. Adding to the income, especially as a tax on the people. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next, we have David Hahn.
My name is David Hahn. I live at 646 Hall Street, City of Ripon. I do not believe we're at the point that we need to have a wheel tax. I don't believe the citizens of Ripon can all afford boost or expense or, to me, a hidden tax. Only my opinion. Because it doesn't have to be brought up every year. It doesn't, I believe. If you need more revenue, I believe there are other solutions in the budget. Our growth in construction has gone up. We all see it every day. So there's more revenue one way or another. I don't exactly know how it all works. There are many other sources. The state has approved a boost in the shared revenue by 24% over last year. So there's more money. So inflation does account for some of your expense, but at the same time, you have a lot of citizens, I don't know the exact number, that are just getting by without vacations, without fancy cars. You know, just trying to send their kids to school and work. A majority of your traffic, I live on Hall Street, comes into town on Hall Street. They come from the west, the northwest, the south, or the northwest to southwest. They drive into town, and then they drive out of town without spending a penny. So there's no doubt that we need road repair. But now is not the time this year. We need to have more discussion, more transparency, and look at other means. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving to our first agenda item. Item is to approve alcohol beverage license requested by Hy-Vee Inc. for a retail liquor license.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Motion by John, second by Jonathan. Any discussion? Ellen?
There are violations that they say are attached, but they are not. I also see that they have various litigation with various entities, and I'm wondering if that's attached to underage sales of alcohol.
I have the information, I just did not send all the documents, just a packet of documents that I do have all that information. I do not have it in copies, but I do have it here that I can share with you.
While we give Ellen a minute to peruse that, is there any other discussion on?
It appears there are systemic issues with sales to minors. Is anyone here from Hy-Vee?
No, they were not coming.
All these pages are sales to minors. Would you like me to count the number of pages?
Can you tell us for how many stores this is for?
Is it for like the country?
Do we know,
Like all
do we know,
Hy-Vees?
you know me?
I don't know how many stores it would cover. And I don't know that we would have, I didn't see Bill tonight, I don't know if we would have access to be able to see
Yep.
something like that since it's state to state, right?
There are 14 pages. Iowa, there are 1, 2, 3, I mean, it's in Iowa, Omaha, Nebraska, Peoria, Norfolk, Mason City, Iowa City, Independence. It seems to be a systemic issue with the company. It means they're not training their staff appropriately.
Are we able to, when we communicate back to them that it was, whatever the decision was, that the council took notice of these issues and we expect that they take note of this for Ripon?
I can relay that, yes. But it's a yes or no whether I give them a
Right.
license.
Well, I suspect I'm the only one who will vote no.
I have a question for the chief. If they are found to be in violation of the ordinances for sales, what are the repercussions?
Sure, there's a point system that we have, so if you have, it depends on what type of violation, how many you get within a certain time period. So ultimately, if there's continued violations, Citations are issued right away for even first offense, for sale to minors, those are issued right away. But if it continues and there's an ongoing issue, it could lead to license suspension.
You think it's 3 and 18
I think
months?
so.
And is the suspension, is it like for a year? Is it for?
I would have to check that. I'm not sure what the length of period of time is.
And ultimately, renewal would be annual, and if
Could be in jeopardy.
violations that are habitual, that's the time that you would address it under our ordinances. I think it's difficult, given the number of stores, and I appreciate the point is well taken, Ellen, but the number of stores in other communities, on the first application, it's hard to suggest due process has been given to the store when they haven't been in Ripon, Wisconsin. It's an ordinance.
It's my understanding that they're going to keep the staff that's there right now. Has Webster's had a lot of problems selling liquor to minors?
No.
Okay, thank you.
One a while back.
Any other
Their
questions for
staff
Chief?
is well-trained.
Further discussion?
So before we vote, I'm only comfortable to vote if I mean, you said it, Naomi, thank you, that you or someone officially will say that we took note of this.
Yes, I came with the number.
Any other discussion?
Thank you, Ellen, for noticing that.
It was my job.
I know, but I
Old
appreciate
habits
it.
die hard.
Thank you.
If there is no more discussion, all those in favor of approving the alcohol beverage license for Hy-Vee at 1188 West Fond du Lac Street, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That is approved. Next, we have a PUD zoning request for, I always get this name.
Meshkovich.
Meshkovich Land LLC. I apologize for always getting that pronunciation wrong. This was approved by the Plan Commission at our last meeting on October
26.
No, that's wrong. 23rd. Approved by the Plan Commission on October 23rd. This is for a condo neighborhood that they are building out by Ripon Hospital.
I'll make a motion to approve the zoning request for Meshkovich Land LLC.
I will second.
Motion by John, second by David. Any discussion on the PUD?
I just wanted to note that this was just a phase one of a multi-phase project. So this is one small part of what they're envisioning it to be. Just so that we'll be seeing more.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the PUD zoning request, say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to a notice of disallowance of claims for a sewer backup. This is brought to us, the issue is brought to us by Tolling Dogner. You can step forward and give a synopsis of the issue.
Sure. My name's Anthony Dogner. I own the property at 544 Scott Street here in Ripon. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to plead my case in front of the council. Back on July 14th, I received a call from the occupant that the basement was full of water. Asked him a couple questions, decided that there was no urgency to go there. We met at 10 o'clock in the next morning, and water was going in the basement. But when I entered the home, I knew it was much more than that. The odor was horrendous. Went in the basement and there was about 3 to 4 inches of sewage that was backed up into the city, or into my basement. I contacted the city immediately. I contacted my plumber and my insurance company. The city did respond very quickly. Within 2 hours, they were there out in front of the property, same time as my plumber was there, which worked out really well. They were in the basement. They snaked it from the basement to the street. There was some minor blockage, but nothing that would cause this type of backup that was going on. Some minor tree roots. There wasn't any items stuck in there from my occupants or anything like that. And when the city was out there working, I don't know what they were doing at that exact same moment, but a big surge of sewage came into my basement while they were out there working on it. My insurance company denied the claim because it was not from the house to the street. The city has checked with their insurance company, and they have denied the claim, even though in the letter from Douglas Dotley from Casual Insurance that it was part of the city sewer system that caused this backup. It had nothing to do with the line from the house to the street. If this was a $50 claim, I wouldn't be here, but the total cost was over $5,700 to have the company come in, clean it, come back several times to deodorize the property, make sure that there wasn't any more fungus or mold growing. My intent when I bought this property, I don't want to be a landlord. I bought it as a company business. So my sellers could sell a home, move into there temporarily, and look for homes and not have to write an offer with a home sale contingency. That was the whole idea behind this. So now I have to disclose to them that there's been sewage backup in this basement, or if I decide to use it as a rental, the same thing. I don't know how many people, or if one of you would want to move into there and store your items in this from now or till whenever. I feel obligated to let them know that. So it's not just this one-time expense. I believe it might be expense down the future, or if I ever want to sell the property, I'm going to have to disclose this backup. The city was proactive. I give them credit, and they immediately had the whole street, I believe, checked and maintained. But prior to that, the last time that the street in front of my property was maintained was 2018. So I don't know how often that's supposed to be done, but I really feel that this isn't an issue that I caused. It's something that the city, not intentionally, but it was a city backup that caused me to, it's actually over $6,000 of expenses that I've had to incur. I guess it'd be just like if I ran my truck into the side of the building. Your city insurance wouldn't pay for it. I didn't have insurance on my truck. You'd be coming after me. You'd be requesting that I pay it or garnish my wages, or somehow, some way, you would get the money from me. So I'm just asking to be reimbursed for just the expense of cleaning it up, which I'm hoping that you receive that. The invoice was $54.55.64 from Service Master, and Quality Plumbing charged me $268.45. Total $57.24.09. Again, thank you for your time and consideration of assisting me with this expense that I feel the city owes me for.
Thank you. Any questions for Tony?
Thank you again.
Thank you.
It's unfortunate.
Adam, do you have anything to add?
So in your packets, you had a bunch of information, including a notice of disallowance of claim, a couple letters, and a staff report. So the staff have investigated the issue, and we're recommending that you issue, along with the insurance company, a notice of disallowance of claim. The alternative to that would be to pay out of the city funds the sewer backup costs. Ultimately, while unfortunate and a combination of things led to a sewer backup at the property, reviewing it with staff, we do not feel that this was caused by the city. And that is why we would recommend a notice of disallowance of claim.
In the staff report, it says that Scott Street was last cleaned with jetting in 2018, and again this year it says 2025, but was that 2024? This
24 was done.
previous August?
Yeah, it was just done this past year. As part of our rotation around the community, so we generally are on a 4, 5, 6, yeah.
And then we do televising at the same time.
John?
In the report, in the background on the first page, first paragraph, it says, after jetting, the sewer began to flow properly after they called speedy clean. And then under number 3 in the timeline, the sewage pipe and manhole 1212 downstream from manhole 1214 was not full, but was also flowing sluggishly. The wastewater operator was directed to call speedy clean to jet the line. So it sounds to me like it was running sluggishly until it was jetted, and then it became to flow properly. What is the insurance company's reason that they're not covering it?
Part of the timeline, there's indication that they may have jetted it or sewer, they had been there pushing through the roots back toward the main, I think is in the timeline. Again, these are factual disputes. That is something you take up after the proceedings today. Clearly, you have the staff recommendation, one, that it was probably the lateral, okay? And that timeline is important when they came to push through tree roots, and by the individual, Tony, testifying that there were tree roots in the lateral. So they were pushed out, and that might have pushed out into the main, and that may have caused sluggish. There was no backup in any other property, so if there would have been a main blockage, there would possibly be backup in other properties. That's a factual issue, which I do believe the adjuster misspoke in his letter. I don't think he had a clear picture. And again, a factual discussion that needs to take place with staff. And we have staff here if the council wants to hear from them. But at the end of the day, even if it was a maintenance of the line, the idea that you immediately go to, this is the city's responsibility, you will be opening yourself up to a myriad of claims from individuals. A regular maintenance program is what's required, and that's your defense, not that you catch every main blockage, if it was a main blockage. Again, I think the facts are, we do not believe, the staff does not believe it was a main blockage, other than perhaps caused by pushing back out into the main, the lateral clearance. I believe that's the staff position. And perhaps the Director of Public Works can speak to that if the council desires. The point is, tonight, the notice of disallowance doesn't mean he loses. It just means for purposes of this evening, we are not going to take and go forward on the facts of this case without further discovery, without further evidence that this was a city-caused blockage and that was not properly detected with a regular maintenance program. So there's two prongs. Was it a main blockage? Two, was there a regular maintenance failure? And both of those we're suggesting to the Common Council may not be present here.
Steve?
I was just looking at this and thinking to myself, this could happen to anybody. But we were jetting these sewers for a long time now. I mean, we've been doing this year after year. It's funny that they should be sluggish. And I understand tree roots and and somebody's line going out to the main. I mean, that can happen, but if it was flowing properly to begin with, you know, and all of a sudden this happened, it needs further investigation. I really do, to be fair. And I know that you're talking myriad about, you know, a lot of people that this could happen to, and it could. But I've seen this happen to other people, and it's not good. I mean, this is pretty devastating if you got kids in a house or whatever. So it's almost like a 50-50 deal where this looks like it's partially with the city and partially with his lateral. So I'd like to have more information on this.
Mark?
I've got a question for Alan, if you would. In general, when installed.
Dan Romer's on.
Perfect.
Dan, what's the slope of a sewer main if you're on?
Depending on the size, is typically 0.4%.
1/16 of an inch per foot, please.
Give me 1 second. Gotta do some math here. It's 5 inches per 100 feet.
Okay. Second lead-on question to that. If a sewer main is not being utilized at much capacity, would the term sluggish be generally used to describe a flow down that way? And what I'm getting at is reported that the flow was sluggish, but also sewer doesn't run at pressure like typical water does.
Well, what's sticking with me when I sat down with staff on this is looking at the map. The manhole at 1214, which is immediately downstream from 554, the sewer pipe that enters into that manhole and exits out of that manhole was full. So if it's an 8-inch pipe, it was full. There was no airspace in there. When you get to manhole 1212, the incoming pipe was full, but the outgoing pipe had air in it. So that's where, somewhere there was something caused between manholes 1214 and 1212. However, when our assistant director responded and first talked to the resident at 554, she then went to 548, knocked on a door and asked the residents if they had any backup, of which she did look down in the basement and they had no backup in there. So that's the one immediately next to and would be the first in order that if 554 had a sewage backup, you would expect 548 to have a backup. No one else in the neighborhood has contacted us about having a backup.
Anyone else have a question for Alan?
Just a couple comments about Mr. Reamer's desire to get more information. Sorry to report, everything's been flushed down the drain at this point in time. You know, you won't be able to replicate that. So what happens is when we go in and jet it, they clean it out. So if there was an abundance of If there was any roots that were the cause on the part of the city, those have likely been removed. If there was debris that was pushed out from the lateral from 554 into this main that was the cause of it, that's been removed. What we did notice is that when we did come in and this area was cleaned, jetted, and televised later this summer. It wasn't last summer, it was this summer. It was part of this year's program. It just happened that that contractor didn't start until August or so of this year, and this happened in the month of July. What we did notice from the televising that was done after the cleaning and jetting was done is that this lateral was accumulating grease at the connection from the main, from the lateral to the main. That if their lateral had been cleaned, there should not be any evidence of grease at this point in time, just a month or two later.
So in conclusion, it's staff's recommendation that you cannot identify that this was the city's negligence.
From my understanding of municipal negligence in this, as long as we have a maintenance program and we adhere to that, then we are not negligent. It's a these things unfortunately do happen. They can happen because somebody else poured something down the drain. I've had that happen the day after Thanksgiving, had an entire neighborhood calling because sewage was backing up in another community. Because somebody, what we suspect is somebody poured the grease from the turkey pot down the drain after they deep fried their turkey. So these things can happen.
Jolene?
So just so I make sure that I heard you correctly, so this issue of the backup happened before the most recent cleaning, and when the most recent cleaning happened, it was reported, or the data shows that there was some grease buildup.
Correct. That's what the video shows us. That's one of the pictures that we gave.
By the way, with Thanksgiving coming up, this is a nice time to remind that maybe our public announcements and our social media to not put grease down.
Yeah.
I have also, unfortunately, this is such an unfortunate situation for the individual, but actually on that note, this was for the individual to figure out if they have renters, perhaps there's liability. Well, I don't know, that's for that person, that's not for us right now.
Right.
Okay, so my question is for a sluggish sewer line. I'm unsure, because I've never experienced that I know of. How can a homeowner check or be proactive? How can they notice something?
Just from personal experience, if your own lateral could be having some problems, is if you do, I lived in a house where we had an old cast iron where soaps, greases just from daily use were starting to adhere to the cast iron, and what we would notice is that the floor drain by the laundry would bubble up and take a while for it to drain. And so in my case, I had a plumber come in and they jetted that out. I didn't even think about, at that point, I was fairly young at the time, I didn't even think about asking the city to come out and check the manholes, but that seems to be the standard course, is if you notice any sluggishness in your own personal sewer, coincidentally, probably 2 weeks after this one, I received a phone call at 9 at night from our police department relaying a concern from a resident about if there was a sewer, if we had any backups or clogs in our main. Ended up, as a normal recourse, I ended up calling 2 people in, because if it was indeed a backup, then I have 2 people. This happened, we were without a jetter truck. We now have a jetter truck back into our arsenal. But ultimately, it's just a sluggish floor drain. And often what happens is people don't check their...
Questions?
can you remind us again, depending on the decisions, so what are sort of our options tonight? And as you said, it doesn't mean that this is final, perhaps, depending on what is decided on. I guess,
Here's what this is. This is a notice of disallowance based upon the general theory that cities have a basic responsibility to deal with sewage in the city. And if they have a maintenance program, they will not be responsible for these types of claims. Ultimately, you have an insurance carrier and an adjuster who adjusted the claim and said deny the claim. We went one step further in this case and had the staff completely look at the facts surrounding this incident. They also have given you their summary, and part of their summary were the questions. Is it possible the jetting caused that to go out in? Later on, we see grease by the lateral. The individual that's harmed here is a homeowner that is renting out or allowing people to use the property. So they're obviously not living there daily. The Director of Public Works has talked about sluggish laterals. There is an admission that there was some blockage in the lateral. So there's going to be a factual problem for the claimant to win in this case, but that doesn't mean that the claimant can't go further. This just sets it up that it sets a deadline of 6 months from the notice that they have to file a lawsuit. And they're based upon the double discussion investigation you have in front of you. You have a lot more than a lot of communities deny these claims on. You have the independent investigation of our staff related to the particulars. Factual disputes oftentimes get resolved by courts. All this is tonight is saying that based upon the information we have this evening, we have to initiate the disallowance process to let the next step go forward.
thank you.
Any further discussion? If there is no more discussion,
is there a motion?
Do we have a motion? Well, does anyone like to make a motion in this?
I move we disallow the claim for sewer backup.
I'll second it. Motion by Ellen, second by Doug. Any discussion on the motion?
You can go with a roll call.
All right. If there's no more discussion, roll call, Adam.
Iverson.
Yes.
Schatzinger.
Yes.
Reamer.
No.
Gallops.
No.
Dankert.
Yes.
Gotsky.
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Split.
No.
Motion carries 5.
All right. Moving to our next item. Pay application for St. Wenceslaus Street project. This is pay application number 3 in the amount of $197,252.28.
So
I was going to make the motion. I'll second it if he's moving it.
Motion by Mark, second by Ellen. Any discussion on pay application? Looks like we'll have at least one more after this.
Should be about one more. Probably won't be for a while.
And it will be $78,245.91.
Or it might be some, but then a retainage till next year.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving pay application number 3 for St. Wenceslaus Street project, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, next we have tree and stump removal proposals. Should have had a staff report on your desk when you came in tonight. Alan, want to summarize this at all, or looks pretty straightforward to me?
What we're requesting is tree and stump removal for the fall of this year with and then with the majority of work for tree and stump removal in 2025. Basically, I was just trying to get a jump on 2025 by combining a bunch of work. I think there was 30 trees to be removed in this fall, and then additional trees, and then all the stumps to be done in the next year. I was hoping to get this in front of contractors in the hopes that if they were looking for work for the winter, we might get some advantageous quotes. With this, Mirror of Green Lake ended up being the lowest, or the low bidder for all aspects of this work. So they did the tree removals this last summer, and they did a nice job for us.
And you're looking for approval for all 5 sections of the bid?
Correct, to Mirror of Green Lake.
Steve?
They'll be doing the stump removal also?
Not until next year, but they would.
Well, yeah, because we farmed that out last time.
Yep. So the stumps would be done next year.
Yeah, by them.
By them.
Okay.
And where, does it say that they also plant the grass, or?
Yeah, that's part of the bid spec that I sent out. If there is a sheet that's got a little diagram. Saw it.
Okay. So, leaves.
It should, you've probably already passed it.
Thanks. I see it.
There it is. Number 6 talks about the
Got this tonight. Right.
What's that?
No, anyways.
Yeah, I emailed it this morning and
Yep.
sent it to you today.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the Department of Public Works to contract with Mirror of Green Lake for tree and stump removal.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Thank you, Alan.
Very good, thank you.
If there is no discussion, all those in favor of approving the bid for Mirror of Green Lake for the tree and stump removal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, next up is room tax agreement between the city and Ripon Main Street. We have a contract before you. Adam, would you like to start this one?
So we talked about this in the budgeting process. Every year or so, we do the agreement for room tax expenditures. This year's a little different in that we've contracted primarily just with Ripon Chamber, but we're splitting that agreement up and having both entities enter into an agreement for room tax expenditures. So the agreement establishes for Ripon Main Street, tourism promotion and tourism development services provided by Ripon Main Street for, with room tax allocation.
Ellen?
I move that we approve the agreement establishing Ripon Main Street for tourism promotion and tourism development services with room tax allocation.
Second.
Motion by Ellen, second by John. Any discussion?
I mean, we have our downtown manager here.
If you'd like to direct any questions to him, you can.
Is there anything you want to say about that I'm assuming you support this decision? Do you I mean, you want to talk about? Sure.
This is a great opportunity to hold Main Street directly accountable to the city, the group that gives us room tax. So it's something that I think will make the process, like I said, more accountable. So you'll be hearing directly from myself how we allocate and how we spend room tax funds.
You're saying as opposed to before, you would have provided that report to the chamber? Because the chamber is the one that, so previously, I mean, I think it's good that we just kind of lay the foundation here. We would have, so what we're voting on the next item, so the Ripon Chamber of Commerce, which they had already been, the room tax agreement, correct?
Yeah, we only had a room tax agreement with the chamber.
Right, and so that is what we previously, and then the chamber gave part of their money, I believe it was a 60-40 split to down. So we are voting tonight on these, for people looking at this, because the difference is we're going to write a check directly to you. And what you're saying then is that instead of giving your report to the chamber, you will come to us.
Correct.
So I like that idea. I will say, and Craig, I've known you for a long time. I think you do a phenomenal job. Ripon Main Street does. I am concerned about the change from 60-40 to 50-50. That I realize that's with the budget. That's not to vote on here tonight. I think that is I question that change, but the point is, I look forward to you reporting here. I know you do a great job, and I support what you do with the Main Street.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Craig? Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Steve?
Is this going to hurt the Chamber of Commerce as far as they're promoting tourism in the city of Ripon?
They will both be promoting tourism as they have.
All right, but before it was 60-40, so why was there such a big change?
Well, it appears like a big change. We have had a conversation, and the executive director of the chamber is here. You may also recall that in the room tax budget, a $5,000 allocation in addition to this was forwarded to the Little White Schoolhouse, an entity of the chamber, to assist with any potential cut, right? So ultimately, while it may be a reduction, it puts both of the entities on the same standard.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the room tax agreement with Ripon Main Street, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, moving on to the room tax agreement with the city and Ripon Chamber of Commerce. Very similar as the last one. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the agreement between the City of Ripon and the Ripon Chamber of Commerce for the room tax dollars.
A second.
Motion by
Well, I think that as long as I serve on city council, if there's someone here to represent what is being voted on, it is in my opinion that I would like to offer them an opportunity to come up. For many, many years, probably since the chamber existed, this agreement has been approved. And so for me, this is pretty non-controversial, but I'd like to offer Mandy to say something. Sure.
Thanks, Jill. Good evening, guys. Yeah, thank you guys for partnering with us. We did send a letter out to all of you to kind of recap on how we are using the room tax dollars for promotion and tourism development. It's only been 2.5 years that I've been with the chamber, but it feels like a lot longer. There's been a lot of changes and growth. We're always trying to adapt and evolve to the changing business world and the needs of our members. All of you in this letter, we we kind of wrote it as a means to not only thank you, but also to help inform all of you better in the different ways that we are using all of the room tax dollars. We do ask and thank you for your continued understanding. The Chamber's definitely in the last 2.5 years been in a time of redevelopment, clearly defining what our goals and objectives are. And right now we're currently tracking our services to the community, to our businesses, to our members, to tourists. And this is helping our board and ultimately helping you understand the important role the Chamber plays in the community. Sometimes it's necessary to contract and become smaller in things that we do provide in order to evaluate and grow in the future. And so outlined in that letter, you can see a description of the various ways we are invested in tourism development, some of our future plans. We're always looking to do more, to be better, always aware that we can only afford right now 1.5 staff. And so we do have some limitations there. When you look at both of the tourism entities being discussed tonight, our financial position as a chamber is vastly different than that of the other organization. And so as the letter mentions, the funding level is just very important to how we function. And that's why we felt the need to just respond our board with a letter kind of giving you guys more information about the daily services and the different ways that we provide for our tourists. I do think it does help having two separate reports because there were times that we didn't fully get to see a lot of the full reporting before we would come before the council, and this way it's just a lot clearer. So I do think that will look good in the future. We look forward to working with you guys, with Adam, the mayor, all of you. And I just want to kind of remind you guys, if you ever have questions about things going on at the chamber, as much as we aren't a city entity, and we are right alongside you, and we're happy to meet. So meeting with me, meeting with our board, both Ted and Adam are always invited to our board meetings. And so we try to be as open and transparent about where we are and where we're headed. I'm looking forward to the quarterly reports. That's also a newer thing. So that way there can just be more information given. Because I feel like we're always reporting, but maybe not directly to your ears. But yeah, also I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any based on the letter or things you've heard tonight.
Any questions for Mandy? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And we have had a motion on this one, right?
Correct.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the room tax agreement for the Ripon Chamber of Commerce, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, moving on to ambulance service agreement. This is our annual agreement between the city ambulance service and surrounding communities that utilize it.
I move that we extend the city-provided ambulance service to the surrounding 7 communities with a 2025 renewal rate per capita charge of $11.17.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
A motion by Ellen. Doug was louder, so I'll give him the second. Any discussion? Doug?
Adam, can you tell us, as of today, what 2 entities have not signed?
Village of Rosendale and Town of Ripon, but we anticipate by the end of the week having them sign on board. There's no indication that they're not going to. But after tonight, if we don't hear response the next couple of days, we will reach back out to them. But everybody else has, and they normally do rather quickly.
If I recall, last year they were the last 2 to sign as well, just timing wise.
They just have to get it on their agendas and stuff. So.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
John?
Could I have the quick answer of how we came up with that number, 1117?
Generally speaking, this is our 3rd year into the agreement, and going back would be 2 years now when we added the paramedic captain position. It was helping fund a portion of that salary, and every year it's increased by only like 2%. So that's how. And prior to that, we were not charging for this service to these surrounding communities. It was merely on the ambulance billings to the communities.
So that number came about with the salary of the captain divided up with all the, okay.
To add the full-time position.
Yeah.
Adam, did you just say that it has gone up 2% since last year?
Basically, yes, every year. It started at 50,000 and it's at 53,560. So over about $1,500.
Doug?
We still pay for some of the cost of that cabinet, do we not?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Do we feel that it's enough? Honestly, I mean, is it or isn't it? I mean, we're always looking for funding for that.
It is, I believe, adequate for where we currently are and the service level that we are to provide, okay? As we look at how fire and EMS in particular could evolve, or ambulance in part, to separate that out, if we're looking at adding additional full-time staff over time, that would be where we have to really look at this. But as of today, based on our staffing levels and based on the service revenue income, this is adequate. And based on, frankly, only our third year of providing this service for over 30 and not charging anything, we have just sort of stepped into this a little bit. And to keep the district at its current size, this is what I would believe is adequate and recommended.
Mark?
I just wanted to make a note on that it's my understanding that EMS services are billed as rendered. So if they're called out, then the person that receives those services is then responsible for those. So I think this is kind of just the ante, so to speak, to be involved and to say, okay, as a community, as a surrounding, group, we are going to say, we're entering this as an agreement so that we all understand where our limitations are, who covers what, and therefore it's kind of just putting a little bit of money where your mouth is for the surrounding communities to receive the service.
And just a point of information, when those services are billed, a majority of those are for Medicare, Medicaid runs, and they do not reimburse the full amount of the cost. So the city always will be burdened with cost. Any further discussion? If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of approving the ambulance agreement for $11.17 per capita, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, next item is the acceptance of the Flexible Facilities Program grant. This is for the grant that was awarded to the city in $5 million for the library renovation project.
I'll make a motion. I'll second it. Whichever.
Let him move it. He's on the library board.
I'll take the... Ellen needs to be more vocal.
Just trying to move us along.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the acceptance of the grant? Doug?
So it's my understanding, the city will be, the board will be working in conjunction with the city on some of the design and stuff, but it will be administered by the city.
Correct.
Okay.
So just to add on that, there's sort of a building committee. There have been plans done independently by the library board that were used to apply for this grant. The grant application had kind of that as its base plus additional work at the library. So in talking through the project, we have identified a designer to come in and put together a project that fits the scope of the grant, as well as a budget of around, I would guess, $2.4 to $2.5 million, which is significantly more because we are essentially adding the fundraise dollars from the library's past fundraise efforts to this pot. The city will be the award recipient. We will work with the library board to establish the project. The city will manage the fund and execute the project. So we have selected a design firm called PRA that has worked with MSA to essentially in the next 3 months, put together the project plan and the bid and spec. So this is a rather unique situation because the grant does allow or does require you to start by July 1st of 2025 and be finished by September 30th of 2026. So this is a very quick turnaround, and the past effort done by a design at the library was not a biddable plan. It was more or less a concept. So we have a short amount of time, and the next thing that will come in front of the council, because you will be essentially, through the grant, funding the project, is the design, bidding, and execution of all of that to get the project done within the required timeframe.
Can you, so what role does the library board have versus city council have in approving and, moving this forward? Are we working together?
I think the idea would be to work together and work through some of, what they would contribute and work through the design elements through working with PRA, right? So we have a building committee. The building committee has representation from the library staff and library board, as well as then the city, myself and Alan. So we'll work with them to kind of come together and form the big plan for everything. But ultimately, the council and the city will be the main driver in this, because the $1.985 million is essentially coming to the city. So you will have to award all the contracts, all of that. They won't necessarily have to do that. They certainly can. We can talk about that, but ultimately, that's where, when this gets bid out, it will be approved by the council, so on and so forth.
Thanks.
Any further questions or discussion?
Any?
Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the Flexible Facilities Program grant in the amount of $1.985 million, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you. All right, next item is position recruitment proposal. Adam?
We have a vacancy in the Finance Director Assistant City Administrator position. So we have reached out to two firms that we've worked with in the past, WHR, MGT, and PAA, to discuss recruitment efforts to help us along with that, filling that position. After reviewing it, staff is recommending that we work with PAA to fill the position. In terms of funding, we have salary left over for the remainder of the year from the position to fund it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from PAA.
I'll second it.
Discussion? John?
Is it always important that we go out to some other, a recruiting place, or can we recruit it ourselves? I mean, we're asking people to pay a wheel tax, and now we're spending $12,600.
Yeah, I understand, and I think the reality is right now with where we are in the office, to put full attention and get the best candidates possible and attract the long-term candidate that we need. This is advised. Ultimately, we have done recruitments with just about every executive or administrative level position in the city over the last few years, from my position to Public Works to City Clerk to Assistant Director of Public Works. And the last time we did this, we did it independently, and I will say that it was not an easy position to be in these types of positions, because there aren't a ton of candidates.
You do have it posted somewhere right now?
No.
You don't at all?
I'd also like to help make the distinction between an operating budget and a capital budget. The wheel tax, which we'll talk about, but no decision will be made tonight because it's discussion, would be exclusively for capital improvement on infrastructure. This is an operational part of the budget, which would be covered by the loss of paying out that salary for the last 3 months of the year. So they're two different budgets.
I agree. It's two different budgets. I'm against always going out with consulting firms to do something that we could do ourselves.
And just in response to that, John, to further Adam said, we have done some recruitments in-house in the last 5 years, and we've done several with outside services. And when we use the outside services, we're pulling people from all over the country, whereas the ones that we've done in-house, I don't think we ever pulled anyone from outside the state, let alone the region. So this, what's that?
We just did like the library director. Some of these are just more targeted. It's really.
But we don't know if we don't try.
I understand, yeah.
I tend to agree with John's concerns, but I kind of look at it from operations, as in keeping everything running, not having an assistant city administrator or finance director puts the city at some risk as we, operate and end the year. And so to me, you're kind of balancing the time and the cost. We're not running a business, but we are running an operation. And if we don't have the people that's efficient, and it makes our workers, who are already doing oh so much that we all know, have to do even more. And it seems kind of unfair to them that now they're also then asked to, post and try and get somebody to come in. And I do agree, it's not a cheap service. It's really not. But the past few people that we've gotten, I think we could all agree, are doing an excellent job. Again, I think merits of how much time and energy can we spend from our internal budgets of not just the the monetary, but our time and man hours versus can we leverage that and get a better candidate or multiple better candidates to come in more quickly so that position, if Adam has to go travel the winter season here, who is going to handle day-to-day operations if we have that person missing? There's that fallback that you have to look at as well as, and when we're missing those people, it's important to keep that filled as best as we can. So cheap either. So it's certainly a balancing act on where we need to focus our efforts.
Jolene?
This would be pretty immediate looking for it, right? We would be putting it out very
Week or so with best case scenarios first of the year.
So I know with the absentee voting, with right now the election, my understanding is there's but I just mean, so I think also, this is not just, I know we focus on advertising, but, they let us know that they're creating a video for us. They've worked with us before. They're, the summary resume acknowledging receipt of applicants. Anyone that's read through these, I can't imagine putting it on the staff to, really administer all of these things that my colleague had just said. This is also time being spent on our staff here, so we'd be paying for time of staff. It's not just, we're just not paying minutes, we're paying for staff time that otherwise you'd have to, correct?
Yeah, the entire office has shifted away from normal responsibilities to cover and do things, right? So everything is shifted right now to essentially absence of this position. So, so there are things that will fall behind. There are things that we will need continued support for. That is just a fact. This is not the first time that this has happened since I have been here. And the previous time we did, it the recruitment was rather challenging, and we did it ourselves, and we had 5 applicants. And we anticipate hopefully getting more than 5 this time around by doing a more professional targeted recruitment and broadening our search capabilities with a firm that we have used multiple times for similar positions for the city.
Doug, then Steve.
So we've recruited in the last, 4 years, Adam, headhunter, Alan, Naomi, and let's see, Alan's assistant.
Katie.
Assistant? Katie. We've done 4 people, and my understanding is all 4 are doing a really fine job. And 3 of them, of course, are in this room. But I have no problem of doing a headhunter because we really need to get solid people that we can interview and pick from. None of this, as in the past, as well, we'll just go with this person here, they're already there. That has never worked out because they didn't know what they were doing. So, yeah, I'm for all this, so that's what I have to say.
Steve?
My only question, I agree with John. Now, the last finance director and assistant that we had was hired not too long ago, right?
Correct. A couple of years. 3 years.
Why are we starting over from the bottom? How come we're using the same outfit to recruit?
No,
How come it's so expensive?
The last time we hired that position, we did it internally.
You did?
Yeah.
Yes.
But then you didn't pay out to the other people?
No, but
Okay.
to expand on what's been said already, not only has the administration office shifted duties to compensate for the missing person and the election strain, but if you ask them to then further disrupt their day and run the recruitment as well, now you're really down 3 people instead of down 1 because you're spending all your time trying to find the recruitment. How much is their time worth by the hour? We can figure that out, but also how many other projects are going to get left behind because their responsibilities have shifted and more things get forgotten or delayed. I mean, $12,600 sounds like a lot of money, but when you figure all the man hours that recruitment would cost the city office, it's gonna add up quickly. Jolene.
Yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer right now with what's happening with the election and everything. We need to prioritize making sure we have all hands on deck to make sure we have a smooth running election for all the reasons that we see and that we know of. And so for me, this is just critical that we have our staff focus on that and focusing on the work of the city. So I'm glad to move forward with PAA. And then the last thing I will say is we once had a search company come in and I had brought up, will you also advertise for places where perhaps underrepresented populations, such as women, people of minority might apply, and they said, if that is important to you. So I want to just state out loud that yes, that is important to me, and I hope that, my understanding is they have done that, and they will continue to advertise in all avenues that are open to us to find the best candidate. So I guess if that just can be relayed, I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, they have definitely, this firm has done it for us in the past. We will ask them to do it again. Any further discussion?
Roll call.
Last time, is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Adam?
Iverson.
Yes.
Schatzinger.
Yes.
Reamer.
Reluctantly, yes.
Gallops.
Yes.
Denkert.
Yes.
Gotsky.
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Split.
No.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on to professional services agreement with MSA for an industrial user assistant. Adam, do you want to start, or Greg? You're here with MSA for this topic, I believe?
Greg's. Oh,
I am.
Yep, thanks, Greg. So in your packet, you have a professional service agreement from MSA to work on basically industrial user assistance. Currently, the city has, I believe, 4 or 5 main industrial or category B users that are treated a little differently than
your normal residential user. They are, your larger industries and offer, a different level of waste coming into the wastewater treatment plant. For many years, we have done billing separate and have had a fee structure, and that has worked okay. But in more recent years, the treatment plant has had some struggles with wet testing and toxicity, and it's being traced back over time to industrial users. So when we began working through this with Katie, our new Assistant Director of Public Works, it became clear that we needed to analyze and review user agreements and review industrial use of our system because of the ongoing challenges. So that is what's in front of you tonight, and Greg certainly can comment about kind of the specifics about the agreement.
Sure. Thanks, Adam. I think that, Adam and I and Katie have met a few times on this and kind of just talked through what the goals are. Obviously permit compliance is one of the main goals of this, right? You guys got to maintain compliance with that discharge permit from the DNR. And then also, revisit the rates is certainly part of this. Are you guys charging the right amount? I think what I like to call it is cost of service. Is each entity and each user of the system paying what it costs to treat it? Each gallon of waste is not the same. You guys charge your residents based on their water usage because it's all pretty consistent, which a resident puts out there, and it's a pretty simple way to do it. But a gallon is not necessarily equal. The things and the constituents and the pollutants in industrial waste can be significantly stronger and then orders of magnitude higher than what a home will put out. And obviously the cost to treat that is significantly more. So we want to review the cost of service and make sure that the city is charging appropriately. Also, is the city charging for all the appropriate pollutants? I think you guys charge for a few of the pollutants, but there's other ones that have a material effect on the way the plant operates, as Adam somewhat alluded to there. And then also we talked about, are there actually maybe some other industries we need to visit, and do they need to be charged as industrial or category B users as well? There might be a couple there. So the intent of this agreement and working with us on here is just kind of help you to walk through this process. And MSA will provide a lot of the technical backbone to this. We broke up our agreement in the project into various phases. We kind of take it stepwise as we go through. We need to start with really initiating a sampling plan that the city staff will primarily initiate and undertake, where we test for various different pollutants from the various different industries and determine, do you charge for these, or are there other ones that you're not charging for that you need to be charging for? And then really push forward towards individual user agreements for these entities as kind of the desired outcome. So as I kind of said, MSA will provide the technical backbone to this. We'll obviously need to work with the city attorney on some of these agreements, and also the city's financial advisor as well, to kind of layer this into other rate evaluations you guys are undertaking, so we can make sure that you guys are collecting the right amount for the services you're providing. So that's kind of a general overview of where we're kind of trying to get to, and making sure that you guys have the right rates for your industrial users in town.
Do we know when the last time we kind of looked at our usage rates comprehensively or in a larger,
From my understanding, and our current practice is this, just so you all understand, our major users, they are sampled for a 1-week period twice a year, and the entire year is based off of that sampling. So for 6-month windows and averaged over a 2 or 3 year period, or a couple, period, okay?
Do they know what week that is?
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out, okay? It's pretty much consistent, okay? So that is one of the main driving forces behind this, is the practice, which may have worked when the plant was operating differently, or there was less issues from some of the discharge. So when we end up having a problem, we are scrambling because there's just a lack of overall understanding of where certain things may be coming from. So SEH was the firm that put that structure together probably 10, 15 years ago, from what I understand. It has not been looked at, has not been updated, has not been added to, they're not independent agreements. And ultimately, we are in a position now where, frankly, tens of thousands of dollars in additional testing and man hours have gone into trying to find a problem. And we have now become aware that there's a bigger need to address this issue with our industrial users than just sampling for 14 days out of the year.
And the current agreement is a cost recuperation based on their usage. So
the current agreement is just an ordinance. There's no independent agreements. There's no.
It's just a flat. We're just assuming
everybody's
that we
charged
can-
the same. So if you have X amount of chloride or X amount of phosphorus or X amount of total expended solids or BOD, whatever that average is based on that small sample size, that's what you get billed through the entire year.
That would have been put in place before some of the changes that we've seen in our sampling requirements. Department of Public Works could probably speak more to this, or Greg could speak more to this. But
You're totally right in that our permit has evolved, and as we reissue our discharge permit, because we are ultimately responsible for discharge into Silver Creek, and the DNR holds us to that permit, if there are additional on us, we have to treat the issue before we violate, and it causes us to then have the DNR, make us do a treatment plant upgrade or fines us every day for a violation.
upgrades are something that we don't have the ability to handle right now, so we need to be proactive with something like this.
You can add anything in.
I guess my only question that I have is, so I understand the reasoning behind it, and I understand the expected end result of taking off costs from the taxpayer, right? And moving that tax burden back to who's actually causing the issue. And that costs us $50,000 or thereabouts, right? But what is the expectation that we get that back, right? Like that 50,000, we get that back year 1, year 2, year 3? Like what's the payback on that? If we're saying like we're investing this money to get it back, to move it away from the taxpayers?
Let me just look up one thing for you. So industrial sewer charges equate to about $538,000 a year in our annual budget. So, versus general sewer charges are about double that. So, depending on the rate structure and how it comes back and what we are charging for and looking to recoup based on this, you could see this be paid back very quickly. I can't, without Greg, you might have more experience in how fast things get recouped, but ultimately, I would say about a year or 2 would be reasonable.
I would say that's a probably reasonable estimate. Obviously I can't guarantee that, but I mean, the one thing I'll say is there's certain constituents you guys don't charge for at all that you should be. For instance, like ammonia. Those kind of things are a large cost to you guys, and it costs what you're paying for it, and need to be recouped. And so I can't give you a certain ROI, but I think it's part of what is the goal here.
So my follow-up then, maybe Greg, why do we need the investigation? Why don't we just raise the rate and charge for what we're not charging for?
You certainly could. I guess the intent is that you have some basis for that as far as, well, we know that this industry or that industry, I'll just keep using the example of ammonia, they're providing this many pounds per year, and we know that ammonia, that we could equate these different costs within your treatment plant budget. Let's just say, as is rounded that you're, just make it easy and round number. It costs you $100 a year to run the treatment plant. $48 of that is due to ammonia. We can equate those dollars to those users and recoup that specifically for it. And so the goal is that you have, I guess a basis for that. If you are contested on any of these fair or equitable charges, you can say, yeah, we have documentation that these charges are equitable to recoup the cost that the city is incurring for this treatment.
And what I'll just say is, in the past, we have done that. A sewer increase has just been an increase across the board, right? But I will tell you that the cost of industrial treatment over the past 2 years is being essentially covered by non-industrial users because it is costing that heavy, right? It's just.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we look back at what it was and how much they're paying, and just take that and say, this is how much you 5 people need to pay next year.
I think
Greg's point was, the point is you got to have support for that. You're going to challenge industry, which we want to keep. And
is there a legal path that they can pursue?
Certainly. They can object to the ordinance and say it's arbitrary and capricious. You just picked a number because you wanted to target us. So this is going to give you the basis to withstand a challenge.
My question out loud then.
It's data-driven. This will be data-driven for increases.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point to, is that I think having the agreement with MSA and then knowing what we need to look for, it covers the city in multiple ways. One, as Adam said, we are ultimately responsible for the output. So if something goes wrong, that's on us. That could be moved so far as to say we were negligent in treating something and we caused some serious harm to the environment, and that would be very bad for us to have to deal with. I also, to Lud's point, where if we have an agreement right now, if it's kind of just one size fits all, it's a blanket agreement, if we can tailor it so that we can, if you're an industry that uses a lot of phosphates, we can tailor it, we know what to treat for that, we can help you help us so that we can take care of it. If your ammonia was brought up, if you're someone that uses a lot of ammonia and you're putting that in, maybe that's a significantly higher cost, so that person or that entity, that organization, needs to bear that higher cost instead of just being a blanket. And if we redo an agreement and know what the data is and know what we need to look for, not for our current standard, but for, I know the DNR is always looking to tighten and restrict and look at our effect into our waterways, and I think it would really help us. We'd have that data. We can move forward and be able to change that year over year to meet those requirements as they come up, instead of all of a sudden saying, oh, we have to cut our X in half and it's going to cost us $250,000 more a year. What are we going to do with it? This gives us that framework. This would give us those data points and reasoning to bring that off of our taxpayers and move it to those people that are generating that cost.
And also with this data, we can actually go to the industrial users and say that this is a problem. This is what we will charge you. That might encourage them to pre-treat their output and never send it to our facilities at all.
And I think that's a big point, because it's kind of laying the groundwork for looking at our treatment plant in total and seeing what facility master plan and what needs to be done down there in the future to ensure that as our permits become tighter and tighter for discharge, we could have a 50% reduction in phosphorus in our next permit renewal in the next year. Well, how are we going to do that? Right? So it's beginning to lay the groundwork for future investment in the treatment plant to ensure we remain operating within our limits.
So is MSA saying, because I'm not sure I exactly read it, that we will be able to have an understanding by entity as to their, so right now, because it sounds like we will be getting all of this data, it could be by group, by all of them. But the point is, what we're saying is we are hoping that we can charge each entity by what they're polluting, and it doesn't necessarily say we're going to get that data individualized.
It's my understanding that.
Well, he's here.
Well,
Yeah, he's shaking his head, yes.
but.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
One of the outcomes to this proposal is a new sampling plan. So we'll be sampling more often at different times. So we will have more information to work with. So that would be on an individual basis. We're sampling at the user, not at the plant.
It says that on page 7 of 9, develop sampling plan, identify the number of industries and commercial businesses to sample. So yes, they would be giving us those industries and entities that we then would need to have the sampling plan to do.
But again, I mean, I read that, but it doesn't say that the data we will get will allow us to know who is putting what in the water. I mean, it's just saying, it could be that all 6 industries, businesses are in a lump data set.
We would be sampling at each individual user.
And so we would know what that individual.
Yes.
And we'd have individual agreements, everything would be separate, right?
Okay, so I'm reading this too, and it's not clear for me, but it's saying that it is. And then it says we will identify, or the MSA will identify pollutants that require sampling. I understand that it's not MSA's legal responsibility to test for everything, but isn't there sort of a ethical responsibility to, you know, there could be pollutants that we don't know are being leached out. I'm assuming it's not just on us to come up with all of the pollutants, that you will test for everything that you can. That makes sense, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, based on the type of industry, we have a pretty good idea of what type of pollutants would be of concern. And I think what we typically try to do is, you know, start with a wide breadth of them. And as we start getting some samples, we can say, oh, well, there's nothing there of this. After a while, we can eliminate that from the sampling plan. And kind of winnow it down to the ones of concern. There's a wide breadth of potential pollutants based on the type of industry and just historical data that the city already has. I mean, I'll also just say, you know, we've done this several times. We have a general idea of what we should be testing for. And if other things come up or other things pop up, we'll add it, certainly. This is kind of why the sampling it's very likely when the sampling is conducted, we're going to have to change as we go along. Oh, this looks like a concern. This may not be a concern. Maybe we want to add this. Maybe we want to take this out. So that's kind of the general.
Right, because I mean, there's literally a movie based on how, you know, the cancer was caused by a pollutant that people were saying we're not seeing it in the water, and because maybe they didn't know to test for it. So.
But that goes to the point too of, as this evolves and as we are required to by the DNR to be under more strict testing, we at least are in a position to do that, you know, and have data and enable, you know, like we can do it better, right?
Good.
Doug?
Okay, so I believe we need to do this.
Yeah.
We need to find out who is causing this, because if we don't, it's going to be more than $50,000 that we're going to have to deal with. And we won't have anybody to ask to recoup that from. So we need to do this.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to accept the MSA proposal for wastewater testing for the industrial facilities.
I'll second it.
Motion by Doug, second by Jolene. Further discussion?
Roll call.
If there's no more discussion, have a roll call vote. Adam?
Split.
Yes.
Sorensen.
Yes.
Gotsky.
Yes.
Denkert.
Yes.
Gallows.
Yes.
Reamer.
Yes.
Schanzinger.
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, moving on to summary budget publication and budget hearing resolution. Adam?
So in your packets is the staff report as well as, let me put the resolution in there.
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
staff
resolution.
So we started doing this where there's a summary budget publication and budget hearing resolution. All this does is it allows the city to publish, which was this draft budget, and set the public hearing. So the public hearing would be Tuesday, November 12th at 2024 at 7 p.m. And then you can see a summary of changes in the staff report that were made to the budget, including cuts and reallocation of dollars to the taxi fund and other cuts to the general fund. And then additionally, we did rework some of the water budget and added what you just would have approved, the $50,000 industrial user study in the sewer budget. There was a change in the overall budget because of personal property tax. So as you may recall, we weren't used to this, but they changed with the shared revenue bill. They removed personal property tax from business and industry, so it was a large tax cut to businesses, and that significantly dropped the city's assessed value, right, by around $14.2 million. To make up that, the state put in about $112,000 and $63,000 into general fund and TIDS respectively to backfill that, because what would have happened to the mill rate is it would have spiked significantly. So in putting those numbers back into the budget, we were able to then reduce the tax levy by about 8.59% from 2024 to 2025. So the levy going to the general fund will be $2.392 million, right? So that's about an 8.5% decrease. So we have the numbers for the assessed value. It has dropped, but with all of those changes, the mill rate is expected to be $9.29. And that equates to a $32 increase on a $100,000 home. Okay, so you can see those were the summarized changes, and we'd just be looking at the summary budget publication.
So you need a motion to authorize the publishing of this document, correct?
And setting the public hearing.
Okay, I so move that we publish the summary of the 2025 city budget and set the required budget public hearing for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Second.
I'll second it, Mayor.
Motion by Ellen, second by Doug. Any discussion?
If someone can attend the public hearing, and who do you recommend they contact?
They can contact, they can send me, call me, they can, whatever they wanted, yep.
Thanks.
Any further discussion on the motion, which would also include any discussion on the budget that changes that he's laid out tonight? Hearing no more discussion, roll call vote, please.
Iverson?
Yes.
Schanzinger?
Yes.
Reamer?
Yes.
Gallows?
Yes.
Dankert?
Yes.
Godsky?
Yes.
Sorensen?
Yes.
Split?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, our next item is just a discussion, further discussion on the vehicle registration fee, otherwise known as a wheel tax. Looks like Adam has some information on his computer. A moment to change this one. All right.
So we just wanted to go over a little bit of information. Obviously, the wheel tax has garnered some discussion publicly, and wanted to talk about it a little bit. We reviewed the concept at the Public Works Committee about a week ago, and it was recommended that it be considered by the council and set a public hearing. So just to kind of take a step back and look at what the city has been doing and what our plans are, and what the intention of the wheel tax or the vehicle registration fee would be. Ultimately, this is not a fee to stabilize a budget. It is not a fee to deter us from our current plans. We don't need it to do what we have planned ahead of you, which we will talk about specifically. It is to enhance our spending on primarily road reconstructions from a surface perspective, not going into the utilities. Ultimately, over the last 3 and 6 years you have here, we receive general transportation aid from the state that is based off of the state's gas tax. They are able to do that. The city is not able to do certain revenue sources like sales and gas taxes. We are prohibited to do that. So what happens is we get aid back. And as we spend more, we calculate to get more. If you see here, in 2024, our 3-year average, we increased it by $1 million, okay? So we are spending more on road reconstructions, road maintenance. Our 6-year average is about $600,000 to $700,000 up. So the city, over the last, since 2017, 2016, primarily in 2020 through 2022, has dramatically increased our spending in transportation, infrastructure, so on and so forth, right? When you look at sort of some of our past challenges, and we've shared this before, while shared revenue has increased, we are coming off of a period in time where general transportation aid and shared revenue remained flat or declined over a period of time. So those things that are funded by sales tax and gas tax were not keeping pace with anything in the normal world. They were basically going down when inflation was going up. And up until the city started spending more on transportation and this shared revenue bill, which has tied to maintenance of effort for public works and policing and public safety. So it is tied to keeping certain levels of service in those areas. This is what we have seen over the past 2 years, is an increase in that. So while we've received more, we have spent more, and we have certain restrictions on how we can spend it from the state. A wheel tax is an option that has been discussed in this community previously, about 5 years ago. It was discussed by a council. It was not to do what is being discussed here this time. It was discussed then to essentially fund the budget, right? That did not go very far. And cities across the state can, and municipalities can set, and counties can set a wheel tax via ordinance. Like I said, it's not required to fund the budget. That was just summary budget publication was issued for. And the concept here is to take the money, put it into a segregated account to fund projects, likely starting in 2026. So ultimately, if you would pass a wheel tax, it takes 90 days to implement, but we wouldn't be doing projects with that until the following year. So we get into a cycle where there's a capital improvement plan, there is funding in the bank, and we would do road projects, okay? The state does take a small collection fee of 3 cents, and as of July, there were 7,750 registered vehicles eligible for a wheel tax in the city.
Can you clarify what vehicles are eligible for the wheel tax?
I can clarify that in a minute. Okay? But it's generally all of your vehicles and motorcycles and things you register, so not heavy trucks, but it'll be defined in the city ordinance, okay? A $20 wheel tax would be about $154,000. $25 wheel tax would be $193,000. So working through the city's capital improvement planning through our financial management plan, through 2024 to 2030, there are $13 million of projects the city will be undertaking, okay? These are funded through general fund, they are funded through general obligation debt, utility revenue, TIDS, grants, and it includes the state highway project, which is an 80-20 split with the state, which is scheduled for 2030, okay? So that is a bit of a unique project and one that is getting planned out as we speak, okay? That is a big project and is part of the 13 million, but that is what we plan on doing. Here are the roads that we plan on doing based on the financial management plan. These are funded through a combination of the resources I just talked about and include, just this past year, St. Wenceslas. We'll move to Hamburg-Henny in 2025, which we have a CDBG grant for $1 million to do. We'll then move to Houston Street, which we have about a $600,000 grant due in 2026. We'll then add in Spring, East Seward, and some of those streets around the park, connecting to there, because frankly, they are shot. Liberty Street would be the project in 2027 from Union up to Coombe and up toward the way, because there have been long-standing drainage and other condition issues on that street, and it's a more arterial, heavier trafficked road. Griswold Street reconstruction is scheduled for 2028. That is a large project. The county will be doing County E coming in the next year or so. For some reason, they do not come into the city limits when they do their projects, but we have had significant deterioration of that more arterial or larger trafficked road. And the decline there, as well as some sanitary sewer issues, we will be doing that. Pacific Street is set to go in 2029. That is a you can just look at it if it were light out and see why it needs to be replaced. There's Fond du Lac Street reconstruction, which is the state highway, which is the big one. That's about 6 or 7 years out. And East Sullivan. So East Sullivan is from the Quick Trip up to the school. That is the city's planned capital improvement fund for road reconstructions. These are larger projects and $13 million, right? These are what we plan to do. It will continue to keep us on a pace to spend more, but will certainly challenge us financially and will require all of the financial resources discussed in the previous slide to accomplish. But this is what is set forward. Our PASER ratings, as you can see here, we've showed this to you before. The current condition of our roads, you can see that 36.8 are a 5 to 6 or, and then 17.4 are 3 to 4, and then 2.75 are 1 to 2. So every 2 years, we are required by state to update this rating and rate the streets. So the majority of our roads fall under the 6 or under. 6 or under roads, while most of the projects I talked about are in that category, there are certainly, from a mile perspective, there's a lot more there, right? And you can see the current pace of where we are at. If we stretch it out and do not include the state highway, because that just is kind of not a local road, that is a state partner road or a connecting highway road. We get aid for it, and there's basically a cost share. But if you look at what our responsibility is for our roads, we are going to average through 2030 about 0.41 roads a year and spend around $10 to $13 million to do that, and that places our 42 miles of roads that the city is tasked with maintaining at a 102-year replacement cycle. And as you can see, 56.79% of the overall roads in the community are rated a 6 or under. So at the 0.41 current rate, we're still at a 58-year replacement cycle for some of the roads. So some of the alternative solutions that have been discussed and were discussed at the Public Works Committee, budget and service cuts, which we certainly could remove expenditures from the current budget to then fund transportation or these other projects. Less sustainable likely due to the increasing operational costs over a period of time, right? So as we go budget to budget, the likelihood of being able to continue to sustain those dollars without other cuts that significantly impact the services that we provide in total, including police, parks, public works, et cetera, the whole gamut of it, it's less sustainable. We could increase the tax levy, right? We could increase, say, by $193,000, which puts $92 more on a $200,000 home. Again, a little less sustainable and only impacts property tax owners, not anybody that is or property taxpayers, not anybody who is living in the city. There's a practice of special assessments that goes back. The city did approximately 20 years ago and discontinued. And while weren't here, those were apparently very unpopular and were removed. And I would venture to guess that some of the challenges we are in today are because of the removal of special assessments. Special assessments, we could do them today for road projects, and you could be looking at directly assessing a property owner anywhere. We would guesstimate, depending on the conditions of the road and what needs to be done, $2,000 to $10,000 plus if we're looking at assessing for curb, gutter, sidewalk, utilities, etc., right? So financially, that is a challenge for the city, because you could be looking at, say, anywhere from a couple $100,000 on a road project that's directly assessed to the property owner. That then gets paid back over a period of time, usually 3 to 5 years. But the city has to essentially float that money out, right? So not everybody pays that right away. So if it's a large assessment, the city is acting as the bank, and the current financial situation, that would stress our ability to do projects based on the other projects we're already doing. That has a significant impact on our lower income residents, and will likely prevent the city from tackling certain areas of town, frankly, because the income limits may not be able to handle such a large assessment. So transportation utility is certainly another option that was taken away from the city. Other communities have done it, but no longer an option because of a Supreme Court decision in the last year. Grants and state aid, certainly increases in those do not hurt. And we have used those in the past to increase our workload and increase our investment in transportation. But certainly as we have been successful, for example, CDBG, we now have like a 2 or 3 year period before we can even apply again, right? So while we can sit here and have grants and state aid or things outside of the community come in to help fund, which we've been aggressive in trying to find, that is going to be more difficult as we find success, because the state isn't just going to give you money every year. So through working with Public Works Director and MSA, we got some costing together on some general roads, right? Tabard, Cass, Oak, Mayparty, Joy Avenue, Harvey Street, John Street, Carroll Avenue. All of these have a 5 or less rating in the Payzer system and equate to about $163,000 of spending. This is just a sample. None of these projects are planned to be done in the next 10 years. Okay? The projects that are being planned to do are these ones right here. Okay? So there are probably at least a dozen other roads that could be put on this list and put in a cycle and rotate it through the community to sort of quadrant it and say, well, this, you start north, south, east, west, whatever you want to do, right? And then a sample ordinance we drafted based on examples from the DMV. Motor vehicle means an automobile or motor truck registered under the state law at a gross weight of not more than 8,000 pounds that is registered in Wisconsin and customarily kept in the city of Ripon. That is what is defined as. The DOT, they get this ordinance. In this ordinance, it says that the purpose of this chapter is to provide a source of revenue in addition to other revenue sources to be used to assist the transportation-related purposes to fund, repair, reconstruct, and resurface roads in lieu of special assessments. So the city would continue the practice of not specially assessing with a wheel tax, as well as it sets a registration fee of $25. Other than that, it kind of says here it'll go into a segregated account for repair, reconstruction, maintenance of roads, and the Common Council shall be reviewing all of that, and there will be required audits or reporting back to the council on how the dollars have been spent. Ultimately, the allocation of funds shall occur as part of the city's annual budget process, ensuring alignment with the city's long-term infrastructure plans and priorities. There is no need to pass this to pass our budget. It takes 90 days after a council action and ordinance for it to go into effect. Beyond that, I can certainly answer any questions. The recommendation by the Public Works Committee, like I said, was to set a public hearing to solicit feedback.
I'm going to first off note that our total general fund revenue increased only for fiscal year 2025 1.08%. Total department expenditures have increased 1.97%. Yep, in the past, the city was not managed fiscally very well. It is, however, in the last 4 years on a much better sound footing. Now, we can't do the gas tax. That's all, we can't do that. State sets that gas tax at the pump. We don't have any say in it. We get some of it back, as Adam has already said. Street assessments, there's no way I would ever want to bring those back, but we could. As I'm leaving the council, we all can pass that so I don't get pitchforked. I'm not interested in that. Appleton, a few years ago, had a tremendous uproar over assessing a major street in their city. It was tremendous amount of money that they were assessing the people. And like, okay, but it's your street. Also, when we talked about this before, I talked to both of our legislatures at the time. I'm not going to mention names. One of them is still in government, and one of them who's still in government told me straight up in a private meeting the three of us had, why don't you just assess street assessments on the property owners? I about swallowed. There are people who can't afford the $25 on their car, and I get that. It's a lot of money, $25 a year. There's no way people in this community, at least in some parts of this community, will be able to afford a $2,000 to $10,000 street assessment on the road that lots of people use besides themselves. Which brings us to the wheel tax. Yes, lots of people drive through this city and don't pay that registration fee. Get that. We are, however, the primary users, which was at the point of a street assessment that the state set up. So assess the streets. You live in it. You benefit from the streets because it increases your property tax value. Having a good street, curb, gutter, all looks nice. That's what I was told, okay? So if we're going to do more road projects, and I am really sick and tired of hearing about this, fix the damn roads. That's an exact quote I've heard on social media, I don't know how many times. Without any understanding of what that costs, $25 a pop for a vehicle to generate $197,000 that will start knocking off some streets that are in really poor condition. I gotta say, I have to strongly consider it, considering that the state of Wisconsin has a now nearly $4 billion budget surplus in the biennial budget ending next month. Here's what I say you should do. Pick up your phone, call Sean Plummer, who's on his way out. Joan Ballwig is going to be moved into a different district when she runs. Call them and yell at them. Tell them they're worthless. Tell them they need to actually do something to help us. Seriously, $4 billion budget surplus, and they can't help us fund our roads without asking our people to pay $25 a car. It's crazy. They need to do more. There is a number of places in our budget in which the state provides funding that they could increase. So, like, Adam, if we raise the levy, are we still underneath the expenditure restraint program?
We would likely struggle to meet our expenditure restraint limit of 3.2%.
And so we would lose that, what, $120,000 or
We lose
more?
$120,000 by increasing our levy by $190,000.
It's that amount, to keep our levy within a certain limit, that $120,000 has been dangled in front of us probably for 15 years or more, has not changed. There's an area that they could increase. They could triple that. That would help us. They would give us like $300,000 instead of 120 or whatever. And then guess what? They are pushing it on us, and I feel really passionate about this, to solve these roads. So, everybody in the city, stop complaining about the roads and take what we got. That's an option right there. I'm not in favor of gutting the Parks and Rec service. Just because someone doesn't use it, they think they can cut it or suggest they cut it. Lots of people use it. That is that is a growing part of this community. Just like the library is, just like all these things that just because you don't use doesn't mean other people use it. So I'm looking at this. And I've thought about this for a long time. Grants, state aid increases, grants are great. We got one coming up, a couple coming up. You can't count on those because we've got a lot. I'm pretty sure coming down the road, we apply for one and we're not getting one. So pick the phone up. Tell your friends and neighbors. Talk to the state. Tell them they can't sit on that $4 billion. We're having an election and they haven't done anything. They haven't promised they're going to do anything. They're not going to do an income tax cut anymore because everybody's going to do that. So what would make them any different? Helping local communities would make that different. That should even be an issue. That should be a bipartisan thing. We need to fix the roads. We need infrastructure. We need to have some more shared revenue that has no strings attached. That $360,000 nearly went to police and EMS and some to DPW. Nothing else. No one else got any money for it. Parks didn't. Front office didn't get anything for raises or anything to keep them here. Nothing. So we're stuck with this. We have to try to help ourselves. State of Wisconsin doesn't seem, as I said before, a very willing partner to help us fix our infrastructure needs and deal with the problems that we have with, in fact, inflation. Even right now, it's still 2 or 3%. And it was going crazy for a while, but now it's tapped back down, it's more tame, but we have a backlog of stuff that we take care of. Just looking in some of the stuff that we had in here, like decreasing park signage. Oh, what's that? Oh, well, people want to know what's going on, what this park is and stuff. These are amenities that we should provide. We kicked in $30,000 from the budget to the rider-share program to try to stabilize that. And that's a funding issue that we have to deal with that's just been growing over the years. So I don't know where we're going to cut. That's been an issue that people have said for years, just cut, just cut, just cut. The city was willy-nilly cutting for years without any real understanding of what they were doing. Now we have a plan. We have a team in place. We're working this through. I don't much like a registration tax. I don't like paying more. My wife is going to kill me, as I said before. I don't think that literally, but she's really happy. And I know people on social media, they don't like paying extra taxes. Some of them don't like paying any tax. And I like the fact that we have some ideas come forward here that are thinking out of the box with some that we can't do. Or it's been done by the state and we get it back, but it's just tight because the state doesn't give us much. thank you for that rant.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mark?
I'm going to pivot slightly, Dr. Grant, and point out the chart that Adam had put up with our planned projects from this year moving to 2030, so about 5 more years of planned projects. Total cost is $13 million that we've already planned on. These are projects that we are saying that we want to do, that we have money for or can find the money for, that can fit within our current budget. The problem that I have with these projects right now is this is just what I like to say, building the house. These projects are projects that need to be done to rebuild roads and rebuild sewer and water and gas infrastructure so that it can last another 50, 60, and in some cases probably pushing 80 years old. But what these projects don't do is put any money aside for the maintenance and normal repair of our local streets. And I think that is something that has been sorely just ignored, frankly, completely ignored for the past 15 years in this community, which is the day-to-day maintenance and repair of our local streets. It's been brought up that many or much of the wear and tear on a road is from heavier vehicles. A heavier vehicle, just by the laws of physics, will cause more wear and tear on a road. That's a fact. But in the Pazer map that Adam showed, those roads that have the worst scores are not roads that are taking semis or dump trucks or utility trucks on a regular basis. They're not taking the beating. They're just degrading because they are not maintained and have not been maintained for 15, 20 years or more in some cases. So my question, kind of broadly to anyone, is if we are, as a city, committing to $13 million in new projects or rebuilding things that need to be rebuilt, where are we and how are we going to fund that for maintenance? Doug has talked about cutting services. We try to do that every year. We try to maintain a standard while costs continue to go up. And we saw that our tax base did not rise as much as we wanted it to this year. So our costs went up and we aren't getting as much money back from the tax levy as we were hoping we would. So that goes and said, well, what are you going to give up? Are you going to give up clean water? Because I don't want to give up clean water. Are we going to give up trash pickup or recycling pickup? I don't want to give up trash pickup or recycling pickup. I'm a user of the road. How is it fair for me to say that someone who owns a property has to pay for the road instead of the users of the road? We're tied, our hands are tied by federal and state regulations. We can't do direct use taxes or stuff like that. So the question to me comes down to, we want to pay to build the project. How are we going to pay, and how are the users of those roads going to pay to maintain it? And I think that a wheel tax, out of all of the options that we have right now, is the most direct and the most reasonable way to get that money in a segregated fund. And I've said this before, I'm very supportive of any money that needs to be collected for road maintenance needs to be in a segregated fund so that it can only go not to East Sullivan Street, but it can also be used for all of our citizens on Tabbert, Cass, Oak, May Party, Joy, Harvey, John Carroll, and everywhere else that under our current plan have no money set aside for them. There's no way that this city can afford to even start on any of these other streets without either severely cutting back what we pay for services, and then everyone's going to feel that. Everyone will feel that. Raising our taxes, which I think was $92, is we would have to raise
Per 100,000.
$92 for every $100,000 of assessment for homeowners only.
It's a $200,000 house. So
Oh, 200,
yeah,
okay.
it's like-
$92
46.
on a $200,000 house. So only homeowners, or we go with a wheel tax, which is able to be set by this body at some number between
well, any number really, but some suggested number between $20, $25, or $30. That money can go directly into a fund where we know it goes directly to those streets that need it. To only start to catch back up on things that we've deferred for 15 or 20 years. I know it's not popular. I know it can be a tough pill to swallow. Between my wife and I, we have 5 vehicles. We would have to pay $125. What time is it? $125 a year every time we get our stickers. Yeah, that sucks. But also, you know what sucks is busting a wheel over on Tabbert Street when you turn into a driveway and there's a giant divot, or going down, Liberty Street or Griswold Street, or what was here as Pacific Street, Well, that's on the 10-year plan, so that one actually does have somewhat of a plan. But the main point is we don't have money set aside for the maintenance of the roads that we have. We have projects to repair and improve the roads that need it, but we need to find alternate routes of funding or find some sort of agreeable middle ground so that we have a plan that at least can start instead of just kicking the can down the road and expecting us to go and pay, millions of dollars for reconstruction when we could have paid $100,000 or $180,000 for maintenance instead of a giant reconstruction project.
Ellen?
I move that the council set a public hearing to consider the wheel tax or vehicle registration fee. Do I need to say when?
Preferably.
Our December meeting,
The first December meeting?
the only December meeting.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, just to get down the road.
All right, Steve?
The only problem I see with this is, once you set a wheel tax, you'll never get rid of it. I'd like to be able to repeal this, say the state came through with some money, if we agreed to that, and you had so much money extra, you never know what's going to happen with the state. They don't like to spend their money, I understand that. But the point is we don't want to have this forever, do you?
No, and this would be set by ordinance by the council, and the council can also repeal an ordinance.
But we also need to hear from the public, and that's why we need to set the public hearing.
Because I have yet to hear one person in the public go, oh, that's a good idea. And I understand, we covered that, but the point is there's going to be a lot of naysayers here too, so.
No one wants to pay more tax, and this is a tax.
Of course not.
I agree. Even though, like I said, the wheel tax in my personal life, I think it hits me pretty hard, my wife and I, but it's out of the options we have, one of the best ones. And I will pledge right now that if the state increases their general transportation aid by 30 or 40% or whatever we need to make up this 180,000 or so, I would be the first one to make a motion to repeal the wheel tax, because we wouldn't need it at that point, and we'd have the better option of the matching funds of the aid from the state to do what we need to do. But I don't see any other option to start to undig this hole right now. Now, if there is some other options out there, if anyone has seen in a different municipality or city other options where we can find money someplace without losing those services that we need, let's hear it at the public hearing. But I understand we don't want to have to do it, but also the roads are going to degrade no matter what. So do we kick the can, or do we bite the bullet now and hopefully have a reasonable plan, adjust it year to year? Every budget we can reallocate, we can relook at it, but out of the options right now, I don't know that we have a significantly better one. It is always possible we would say no. That is a possibility, but that just brings us right back around.
I will just add that one of his charts there said that our reconstruct rate for the city is currently about 102 years. With the calculation at $25, it drops that between from 50 to 60 years, somewhere in that range. So while it's not perfect, because roads don't last 50 or 60 years, it is a vast improvement. Doug?
Hey, if we're going to do a hearing on the wheel tax, can we have a hearing on street assessments too, so people can have full understanding of what some of these projects would cost them with a street assessment?
Was that rhetorical?
Yeah, kind of was, but still.
Jolie?
How does the hearing work as far as like this presentation, Adam, that you gave? I mean, ideally, everyone that comes to the hearing would have heard that presentation, but also likely they probably won't take the time to perhaps hear this presentation. Is that something that can be part of the hearing where you can give a presentation as an overview?
If the council would like to present information about the proposed wheel tax, we can do that ahead of or as part of the public hearing. Ultimately, we have talked about this. We would ask that residents, if they have, feedback or want information about it, we can post it online. We can share information online and try to educate the public about kind of what happens or why we're in this situation. I'd obviously recommend people just move 2 hours into this meeting on YouTube and maybe watch.
There you go.
It's out there. And certainly we can talk about it more at that meeting if you so direct me to do so.
I like the idea of putting out on social media, the timestamp.
Might disable the comments, so I'm not.
I mean, maybe. So then just to be clear, is the public hearing at part of our normal time?
It would be
part of the meeting.
It'd be part of the meeting, kind of like the budget hearing.
Okay. And then last thing that I will say is that, Steve, I understand your concern, but I just want to be very clear and reiterate that as what the mayor reiterated, when there's an ordinance, any one of us can bring up a motion to repeal something, to review something. And so I think we have to be very careful to not have the public think that, if it passes now, it's going to be for eternity. That is just not the case, and that any one of us, including yourself, can bring up a motion to end it.
Any further discussion on the motion to hold the public hearing at the first December meeting, or the December meeting? Do we have a date on that meeting?
Does somebody have a calendar?
I have a calendar. The 10th.
10th, December 10th. So, okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of scheduling a public hearing on the vehicle registration fee for the December 10th meeting as part of the regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That is approved. That will be on December 10th's agenda. All right, next item is to review the 2025 fee schedule.
I have 3 questions. Street use permit, and I see that we also have an ordinance, but there's no dollar amount, and does the ordinance then recommend a dollar amount?
I will ask for a motion to recommend a dollar amount.
Okay.
If you so choose to pass that.
My second question is firework permit. Is this for those folks who like to shoot fireworks off all year round?
Not intended for those folks doing it illegally. It is for those who are selling or have like an event.
Can we make a fee for those people who are doing it illegally?
I don't know.
And charge them $100 or $1,000?
I've got to imagine that there's a fine for it. Does
There's a fine,
anyone know what the fine is for illegally using fireworks?
It's at least $100.
But you have to know exactly who's doing it and what their address is to have the police come.
hard one to enforce.
And then the third question is there a recommended fee for the taxi? I see the taxi has like their operator license and taxi driver license and all that happy stuff, but when do we decide what the riders pay?
Oh, so the taxi fees are in here. We're not recommending any increase to the taxi fares except, just the taxi one, except for agency fare would go from $7.50 to $10. Agency fares are paid for by like Medicaid or Medicare from like an institution that calls and has a transport. We do not need to have a public hearing for that. All of those other fees on the taxi service, to change them, we would have a required public hearing. We don't necessarily have a plan at this point to have that public hearing or increase the taxi fee. Any other ones you're referencing are basically what the city charges for someone to operate a taxi.
Oh, I do have a fourth question. Chickens. How many like chicken people did we have this year?
I believe we have approximately 9.
So it's comparable to last year?
Yeah, there's not been
Okay, thanks. I was just wondering.
So
they're utilizing it. That's good.
That's good.
So this is to fund the 2025 budget. We just review it and then we take it to the next meeting as part of the budget with a resolution to adopt these.
Do we need a motion on it tonight?
No, it's just review, so I don't, if you want to make any changes next month, we can certainly do so, but review it.
Does anyone want to discuss or make any suggestions for changes tonight? If not, we will move on.
Oh, I have how much rental activity have we had on the senior activity center? I was just renting the thing out.
I'd have to look, Doug.
Is it been rented out?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We've had to, we've reviewed the fee a couple times there to make it more attractive because people aren't using it as long or whatever. So it gets used, I'd have to ask Ashton exactly, but more than I think you think.
Yeah, but I was just wondering how much usage the building is getting, because it was a fee in here and I just curious. And so the other question I have, Mayor, is I'm raising my hand to get your permission. Now, the fees for the park rentals, that fee doesn't go back into our budget to stabilize it. That is used to maintain the buildings and park structures, correct? Like plumbing, painting, roof, windows.
So park reservations go back into the general fund to fund the operations of the city. So obviously parks are not revenue generators or revenue makers.
No.
So tax dollars and state aid subsidize the maintenance and the activities within the park system. So all you can hope is that it gets to a level that it's needing less, but to sit here and say, well, we want to fund our entire park operations on reservations, we would never have a reservation because it would be $2,000 for a park rental.
Thank you.
Jolene.
As an estimate, not.
Do you think, is it appropriate to ask to put a, sort of, some of these have, in parentheses yearly, but almost by every charge, to put whether it's annual or per request. So for example, the noise permit, I assume it's per request. And, other ones are just assume that it's annual, but it doesn't state it.
That all happens through the permitting process. So they come and they talk to normally Naomi. She's like, okay, here's your permit. And it kind of handles it from there. So I don't think there needs to be a giant distinction there.
Or were you asking just on this sheet for informational for?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we can try to add stuff.
As I don't need it all by the next meeting, but I just think it's smart as we move
We
forward.
try to put the fee on the permit as well. So like when somebody looks it up, they have it and it's like,
Okay, got it.
per time or whatever.
there are no necessarily blanket permits a lot of times, where it just allows people to have noise all the time. It's all individual, or parades, whatever.
Any further discussion? All right. We will move on to number 15. Ordinance to create Chapter 15.22, Street Use Permits. Adam?
The Public Works Department, committee reviewed this and recommended approval. So kind of the background here is we have ordinances for things like excavation and construction and alcohol events in the close down a street parades. We have a process for that. Street use is one that hasn't really been addressed in the ordinance, and essentially it's up to my office to authorize the closure of a street. And I'm frankly just not going to do that anymore because we have people literally just asking to close down, say, Watson Street. And I notify the police department and the fire department and the EMS, and it's like, get some barricades there and boom, you can close down Watson Street. Other processes require permitting or bonding. This process is one that, the magnitude of, or the impact that it can have on property owners around it, I'm just not willing to do it anymore. So I drafted an ordinance that would say, if you want to close the street for like a party or an activity, you have to come to the Common Council.
This seemed like something that we probably should have had codified previously, and I thought that we had at one point. So I will move to adopt ordinance to create Chapter 15.22, Street Use Permits of the Municipal Code.
Motion by Mark, second by John. Doug?
We can discuss the fees for this.
Oh yeah, we need to set a fee.
Need to set a fee or something.
Should we do that in a separate motion?
Yes.
Sure, since it's already on.
Can go into your fee structure.
So discussion on the motion to create this chapter.
I assume you base it off of other cities?
There are two options. Either they can go get a petition and have everyone sign, or they can come to the council. And I figured, let you decide.
But I assume you base this ordinance off of other cities?
Yeah, there's two options. There's two models. I picked one.
He doesn't want to close streets anymore. I think he's made it very clear.
Not just myself. Even the petition one, it's not a public process. So I think, what can happen in these events and how, I think bringing it to the forefront of the council is no different than how we handle the petitions for closing streets for events that have alcohol. So this would mirror that.
And just a note for the petition model, if you have one neighbor that doesn't get along with another, then it could not be a fair way to not allow a closure. Whereas coming before this body is ideal. Jolene, then Doug.
I think this is smart for us to have. I'm for this. My question is on the second page under the number 6. The proposed use could equally be held in a public park or other location. That does seem like, if someone says, could someone say, for example, some downtown event should instead be in a park? How is there, I assume that the process of deciding this would be up for the council then to decide?
Yeah, so that whole denial section is reasons why the council could deny.
Put whatever weight you want in it.
So like for a kid's birthday party, I want to close off Fenton Street for my kid's birthday party so that they can run around the street with their friends and play games. Well, probably not, but if it was, let's close off part of Fenton Street so that we get everybody in the community out there having burgers and dogs and talking, and here's some sodas and some, no beer, because that's another whole issue, I think. And maybe we'll have a bouncy castle or something for the kids, this, and that would be different than the birthday party for my 6-year-old and his 10 friends from school, so we're just gonna close the street off just because it's his birthday.
I heard Doug is gonna get a dunk tank and we'll put him right there.
We'll get a dunk tank, because I want that wheel tax, that can put me on there and throw softballs, so we can raise some money that way. Okay, sorry.
Stay on topic.
Sorry.
I don't want to, like, again, split hairs here, but back to my question I just asked. Mayor, you said that that's a reason why the council could deny an application, and the way it's written here, it's just under straight denial.
Maybe.
Maybe
Where am I seeing?
Application for street use may be denied.
Maybe denied right there.
Oh,
That's it.
okay, thanks.
So it's up to the
Okay.
council's
Whichever way
discretion
you want
whether
it.
they deny and say, try to have it at a park, or they feel that it warrants having it on a street, and you decide to allow the closure.
Can we call the question?
You certainly could.
I'm calling the question.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'm calling the question.
You've already done that.
I know, but we can have a discussion on calling the question.
Yes, you can discuss.
I don't want to discuss that.
All right. So if there's no more discussion, the motion is to create Chapter 15.22, Street Use Permits of the Municipal Code. All those in favor of approving that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would anyone like to discuss or make a motion for the dollar amount for said permit?
Well, what would be the recommended amount? We've not done this before.
So I would say minimum $25 to keep it in line with like a sidewalk use or another kind of permit of that level.
I move we do the $25 thing.
Seconded.
Motion by Ellen, second by Mark.
Yeah. Great, like 10. We can raise it.
Sure.
That's.
All right, so the motion is to set the fee for that permit for $25 per use, or per application.
Per application.
Per closure.
Any discussion on that motion? Steve?
I know somewhere in this pile here, it said something about parades. They had like $10 for a parade. Is that gonna affect, say, Ripon Fest or somebody like that, or will they have to pay that $25? Excuse my voice.
So a parade and an event are different things, taking different potential capacities away from the city. Parades are usually short, done within an hour. These can take the whole day, right? So $10 for a parade permit. We can issue a parade permit from a staff level. This is just a bit more, unique and a bit more concerned. So that's my comment on it, right?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of, one second, I have to back up.
$25.
Street closure fee.
Yeah, we actually have to back up, I apologize. Unless it was a unanimous vote for the ordinance, because that should have been a roll call.
It was unanimous.
Unanimous? Okay. I apologize. All right, so currently the motion is to set the fee for that permit for $25. If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of setting that fee at $25, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, moving on, project updates and staff reports. Public Works, anything?
Just say that contractors showed up today to start doing earthwork for the new facility.
Excellent. And
I mean, everyone is asking about leaves. You've done a good job putting it out on social media. Nice job on getting it out there, and I guess we'll see how long it gets to go until snow comes, huh? 'Cause that's...
But they work year round to ensure they're being, weather that you physically can't work. They'll be working all winter, so.
No, she said leaves.
Leaves.
Oh, for leaves, not leaves.
I know what I was asking about.
Please don't be working on it.
They probably wrapped up their second round through the community today. So they'll start a third.
Thanks.
All right. Anything PD? Naomi?
Okay, I know we've got the election coming up, and I'm so excited. I've lost some of my luster here. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of stats on what has been happening in the chaos in the office, and literally it's been a little chaotic if you've come in, so bear with us all in the office right now. But statistically speaking, this election, we have emailed out 21 ballots. Those are like for overseas voters, military, what have you. We have mailed out 720 ballots, and we have had 544 voting in person. So that's a total of 1,285 people. Right now we have 189 left to return ballots, so it's a very low amount. We've got a huge turnout and a huge return on this year's, or this election, so that's great. So we've had basically 25% have voted. So we have 4,356 registered voters in the city of Ripon, and that's 25% have voted so far. So it's huge.
With 4 more days this.
Yep, 4 more exciting days to go. Voting in the clerk's office where you pay your utilities, it is 7:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday will be 7:30 till 5 p.m.
Thank you.
I do have one question. For mailed ballots, when you return them, it does update on myvote.wi.gov the status of your ballot that it's been returned, correct? Okay.
If you're on there, you have to be on there in order to get that status report.
Okay.
So if you haven't put your information in there, it's
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Adam?
So just a quick update. So we've had a few, or more than a few complaints about discolored water. So it was first reported to the city on October 10th, and our staff began trying to diagnose what the issue was. Ultimately, areas in the Fenton and Scott and Matoman, kind of that east part of town, were more or less being impacted. And well 5 did not at that point show many significant irregularities, and through sampling in well 5, through that period there was normal ranges of iron, chlorine, phosphorates, all the things we test for. So we initially thought that it was sediment being stirred up in through the addition of the phosphates, which clean the pipes. But as we flushed, we realized that that wasn't what the issue really wasn't, or happening. It had to be something else. So further investigation and flushing, we finally, on October 24th, confirmed that there was an issue with well 5, and it has since been taken offline, and we have not had any issues or reported areas since Friday when it was taken offline. So we apologize for the issue, and it should be solved at this point. The problem now is well 5, which is the city's oldest well, needs to be rehabilitated, and we are working with the DNR and others to determine what course of action is to get that back online, because there was essentially a filtration issue and a buildup of iron on the bottom of a tank.
No, because I called about this, and just so we stated, iron is not harmful to health.
Yeah, you're not necessarily going to, get sick from consuming it if there was, high levels of iron. Ultimately, it's just not appetizing and it has an odor. So, if there are any issues moving forward, certainly let us know, because, it shouldn't be there anymore. That's pretty much where we haven't had any complaints, but if people have issues, to call us. While social media can get the word out, it doesn't always get to us, so we need to know so we can investigate it.
But that's on Will Fice on Fenton Street, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Only communication I have this evening is the election on November 5th. Poll time 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.? 8 p.m. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Here. Oh, Jesus. Sorry. 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. here in the council chambers. If you vote early, she gave you all that information as well. There is no in-person absentee voting on that Monday. So remember that. So it's either this week or next Tuesday. Those are your dates. All right. At this point, I will ask for a motion to adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Two topics will be development agreement with Ripon Main Street and 112 Watson Street, as well as city administrator annual review, and to review the closed session meeting from June 11th, 2024 for accuracy.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
I got the motion. Is there a second? Motion by Ellen, second by Dave. All those in favor of adjourning to closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will adjourn to closed session at 9:47.
We go to the back.
We'll take a 5-minute break before